debugging in epics. Well, let's take a simple example in life, and that is you're driving your car in the middle of the highway and you see a flashing light or hear a bell, and as you look at your flashing light, it's telling you you're running out of gas. Well, that's a lifesaver. The last thing we want to do is run out of gas as we're traveling. Or you have some sensor come up with a blinking light that says, and then you read that message, whether it's check engine or check the pressure of the tires and so on and so forth. Similarly, as we're writing our code, in a perfect life, we want perfect code. But in reality, certain times we notice certain things, or we'd like to see certain behaviors or look at certain counts and so on, and we'd like to make sure that we have the optimal code in the optimal environment. And that is why debugging is very important. So in a perfect world, we develop our epics code in a sandbox and debug it with a developer console or debug logs, unit test our code, and then distribute it to the customer using packages. Epics provides debugging support. So we can debug our epics code using developer console and debug logs. To aid debugging in our code, epics supports exception statement and custom exceptions as well. Also, epics could send emails to developers for unhandled exceptions. A debug log can record database operations, system processes, and errors that occur when executing a transaction or running unit tests. Debug logs can contain information about database changes, HTTP callouts, epics errors, resources used by epics, automated workflow processes such as workflow rules and assignment rules and approval processes. So to simplify, debugging is an important part in any programming development. In epics, we have certain tools that can be used for debugging. One of them is the system.debug method, which prints the value and output of a variable in the debug logs. We can use the following two tools for debugging: Developer Console and Debug Logs. Debugging via Developer Console. We can use the Developer Console and execute anonymous functionality for debugging the epics. So let's take an example. We can consider our existing example of fetching the customer records, which has been created. We just want to know if the query is returning the results or not, and if yes, then we will check the value of list. So we can just simply copy and paste the code that we have and execute in an anonymous window and follow the steps which we have done for operating execute anonymous window. So in step 1, we will open the developer console, and then the second step is open the execute anonymous from debug as shown. Step 3, we can simply open the execute anonymous window and copy and paste the following code or type it in, and then click on execute. And then step 4, open the logs as shown. Next, step 5, let's enter the user in filter condition. And then step 6, open the user debug statement as shown. debugging via debug logs. We can debug the same class via debug logs as well. Suppose you have a trigger in customer object and it needs to be debugged for some variable values. Then you can do this via the debug logs as shown. This is the trigger code which updates the description field if the modified customer is active, and we want to check the value of variables and records currently in scope. And so to generate the debug logs, let's follow the following steps. Step number 1, set the debug logs for the user. Go to Setup and type debug log in Search Setup window, and then click on the link. And so step 2 is to set the debug logs as shown. Moving to the third step, let's enter the name of user which requires setup. And then after that, step 4, modify the customer records as events should occur to generate the debug log. At this point, step 5, we can go to the debug logs section again, open the debug logs and click on reset. And the next step, step 6, is to click on the view link of the first debug log. Let's search for the string user by using the browser search as shown in the image. The debug statement will show the value of the field at which we have set the point. Testing is the integrated part of Epix or any other application development. In Epix, we have separate test classes to develop for all the unit testing.